Hello, this is Lee back once again for another review. This time I'm going to be reviewing Shimmer Volume 62. This was the second pay-per-view of Shimmer Women Athletes. The first, of course, being Volume 53. I hope you'll check out my review there of that video. Anyway, Volume 62, yes. Once again, as with the previous pay-per-view, I was not able to attend the show live, but I did watch the live stream over the WWN Live Network. Video on demand, of course, was available shortly after the show, and then finally this digital versatile disc was put together, which I then purchased. As you can see, the wonderful artwork there. Basically, Volume 62, when I first watched it, I must say it was a bit of a disappointment. And that's nothing against Shimmer as a whole, but I felt as if, while there were fewer production glitches with 62 as opposed to 53, 53 had many delays, sound cutting out and so forth. Once they got going, though, it was fairly smooth. Well, 62 was recorded very well, but I felt as if the arena was very dark. The matches, the light level was a little too low, I think, on the stream. I also felt as if the sound quality was not as good as in the past. Once this DVD was put out, of course, those issues were fixed. The resolution on the video is much better than what it was the streaming experience. So I say that there was an improvement there. But the actual show was a bit of a shock for some of us, because, of course, the hardest of the hardcore Shimmer fans attend all of the live shows, traveling far and wide to see these wrestlers perform. But most of the time, the DVDs are about 6 months to a year out of date, meaning that you will be several shows behind. So if you're trying to see, the storyline or who's the champion now, you may have missed a lot. Now, it's true in this day and age of the internet, social media, people can find out exactly the stats and things. Some of us like to be surprised. I prefer not to know that much. I may look at the results, but forget about them by the time the show runs around. But what I felt with 62 is there were a lot of wrestlers that I was used to who were not there, and there were lots of new wrestlers who had not yet appeared in a Shimmer show that I had seen for the first time appearing. So it was a little bit of a shock. Now that the DVDs have caught up to the show, of course, I can see these wrestlers in their debuts. I can see a little more of them and appreciate them, I think, a little more. It's nice to have a background, usually, because you'll see a wrestler come out and they'll get a huge reaction from the fans there, but you have no idea who they are. You just have to take their word for it. Now, it's true that some wrestlers will come in from other promotions to Shimmer, and they have a previous reputation, but that reputation may be changed from what was previously involved. For example, Mischief started her popularity and her character as a heel, as a bad person, but when she came to Shimmer, she quickly became a face, a baby face, which was strange because of her character. She cheated and so forth, but she was still beloved and eventually became nice. But other wrestlers may have had a sparkle debut as a certain type of character, but then their actual debut, they may continue that character or may have a totally different persona. So it's very confusing. Some fans are in the know. There are plants and shills in the audience who know the story already and may try to get things going. But it can be a little bit jarring if you don't know who these wrestlers are. Of course, the matches should speak for themselves, but I'm just saying, overall. So 62 saw many new faces. Basically, I'll go now through some of these matches. The show started off with a little bit of a laser light display going on in the background. I thought that was nice because most of the time Shimmer does not have, of course, not having the budget of some of the other promotions. No pyrotechnics, very few fancy light effects. There were some volumes where they had some strobe lights and things, but very few things. No, smoke machines and things like that. So to have a little bit of a laser light was kind of a nice thing. This was a smaller venue. Let me see. This was in New Orleans. The actual venue itself was, I believe, near a college campus, and so there was a kind of a college crowd, a kind of a young person atmosphere, but it was very small. This was nothing like 53, with its very large 500 to 900 person, arena, atmosphere, WrestleCon, and so forth. This was much more comparable to your Bourbon Eagles Club size event. There was a small stage, I believe, so it's kind of similarly arranged to the Eagles Club, but not quite exactly. The announcer was Daphne, which was very nice to see her come out wearing a black and green outfit, reminiscent somewhat of the outfit she wore when she was with Mischief with the Scream Queens. Anyway, Daphne, of course, inactive wrestler, but participating any way she can in wrestling-type events here in Shimmer. So good to see her announcing an early match. Was between, let me see, oh yes, Solo Darling, who I had not seen before, Heidi Lovelace, who I had seen before, I believe, in Sparkle, and then Nevaeh and Sassy Steffi were their opponents. So for that early tag team match, Solo Darling, the gimmick that she has is kind of a cutesy, like cat type of animal person. She will have like fluffy ears, often a fluffy tail. I suppose her background was some kind of dancing or something. Attractive woman. I've not seen much of her work in wrestling, so I can't really give a full analysis of it, other than to say, her costumes catchy. And we'll see how it goes. I believe later Daphne actually became her manager and would give her beverages at ringside and things like that. So we'll see more of what her work looks like in the future. Heidi Lovelace, of course, when she first came on, I had this impression of her as a smaller, almost like a little sister of Serena Deeb. She reminded me very much of a younger Serena Deeb, and I'm sure there's no relation, but there's just a slight resemblance. And her character's gone through many changes over time. She later becomes the human rag doll, and so forth, and has little stitches on her outfit as if she were Raggedy Andy, or Raggedy Ann, I should say, because they were brother and sister. But anyway, Heidi Lovelace, again, a younger wrestler. They're kind of just getting their feet wet, becoming, familiar to the fans and so forth. So it was an okay match. Now Nevaeh and Sassy Steffi are more the veterans in this, and more well-known. Sassy Steffi, of course, I feel as if I am bashing her in these reviews. I don't mean to be. I think Sassy Steffi has improved in the videos I've seen, but I just took some getting used to her character, because at times I just felt she was very generic. I believe some of it is she has had to change her in-ring style because of injuries. Certainly, she, as with so many of the Shimmer athletes, the differences are good, because it is not as if this is a WWE or TNA post-2009, where it seems as if so many of the women in the roster are so similar to one another, too similar in terms of appearance, in terms of style, that it becomes almost a very generic experience with the short matches, and I think that really diminishes the skill, the diversity, the expression that these women are obviously capable of. So I appreciate the fact that there are people like Sassy Steffi on the roster, alongside so many others. So I think in isolation, if I saw there was a Sassy Steffi match, I think, well, who cares? But she has her part to play, and she fits in with all the others. So I suppose the backhanded compliment there is that Sassy Steffi has her place in Shimmer. And I will say that I will be following her matches more closely in the future, just to see if I have maybe judged her too harshly, and to see what her individual talents actually are. Because I do want to give each wrestler the benefit of the doubt, because very often my first impressions are mistaken, and sometimes they're just having an off day. So Sassy Steffi and Nevaeh were the opponents in this match. Now, Nevaeh, in the past, I have stated that she was not really one of my favorites. She and Ashley Lane were a tag team, of course, and I just felt they were a little bit generic. I felt as if they were certainly the type of wrestlers that would have television appeal, but I've seen so many women wrestlers who sort of fit that mold that I want to see something different. And of course, it's not their fault. Those type of wrestlers, of course, have a place in a promotion like Shimmer, where they're all women. If they were all exactly the same, it would be boring. But each has their own niche and their part to play. I will say that I appreciate Nevaeh much more now that she is a singles wrestler, and actually in recent volumes her physique has changed, her attitude has changed, and I feel as if actually she is a better overall performer than she was in her tag team days, and when she had that first falling out with Ashley Lane after she had returned from TNA. So this match I thought was kind of, as the first match, people were just kind of getting warmed up, the fans were just kind of getting used to things, so it was okay, but it wasn't great. Sometimes the opening match of a show will be amazing, other times it's kind of just like, it's alright, nothing really wrong with it. Moving on. And Veda Scott had a match. Veda Scott, of course, playing this kind of nerdy, unassuming girl. Not one of my favorite wrestlers at this time. I think she improves over time, but in some of these earlier instances, I just felt as if she just didn't... She felt very green, and I'm not talking about her outfit. So that's nothing against her personally. I just felt as if she was just not as good as some of the other wrestlers. She often plays the part of someone kind of getting bullied or beaten on. Now, Leva Bates, of course, has her cosplay. Every match is unique because you're not sure what character she's going to be next. So she brings that to the table and makes it fun, passable, even if the match is not good, even if she's just going to get beat up. But I think here it felt much more evenly matched between the two of them. Next, I'll look at the match between Kaylee Ray and Vanessa Craven, two wrestlers I had never seen before. Kaylee Ray becomes kind of a rising star in later volumes, as she would be a major player in the Chick Fight tournament, which I will be talking about when I get to that volume, which was the next pay-per-view after this one, volume 71. But anyway, Kaylee Ray with her bright red hair, and slender physique, versus Vanessa Craven. Now, Vanessa Craven at first doesn't look that impressive. She just kind of looks like just a woman wearing a kind of jumpsuit, tights with kind of a little demon horns and things. Not really what's the big deal? Well, eventually when I saw her at a live show, I was blown away by her size. If you'll notice, her height in relation to the ring posts, the other wrestlers, the referees, and so forth, she's a very imposing woman. She doesn't have necessarily the bulk or obvious, muscle as maybe an amazing Kong or a Jessica Havoc, but nevertheless she is a large woman. I think at least 6 foot, maybe 6'1", 200, I think 180 or so pounds. Of course, when we're talking about heights and weights with wrestlers, generally there's some exaggeration back and forth. I've often heard it said that the male wrestlers, they exaggerate the height and weight. The female wrestlers, they lower the weight. That's just how it works. So, but imagine a 6 foot, 200-pound woman, and you have an idea of a Vanessa Craven, someone who could play football. So actually, a woman of few words, but imposing, certainly in person, certainly at ringside. On the video, some of that is lost. But the mismatch, if you will, the very slender, fast Kaylee Ray versus the large, imposing Vanessa Craven. So it was interesting to see the two of them interact, but without previous matches, it was kind of a wait and see, I felt. Next, Lovelace versus Kimber Lee. Now, Kimber Lee we saw debut on Volume 53, the previous pay-per-view. Kaylee Ray, from the previous match. Kimber Lee. The next match we have Lovelace versus Kimber Lee. Now, Lovelace has been seen as Heidi Lovelace in TNA in the past. She feuded with Lady Tapa in the gut check, short-lived gimmick they were doing. Also, Lovelace appears in the Lucha Underground as one of the few female luchadoras in that promotion. I'd like to much better, I think, in Lucha Underground. She played a villainess there. Here, she basically played the part of kind of a bad girl from another promotion. She came in wearing a belt, not a Shimmer belt. At times there have been cross-promotion with Shine and Ring of Honor and so forth. So she came out as someone who was already a champion. She had a bandana over her face, looking like a bandito. Anyway, Lovelace came across as a tough, strong woman. I felt this was much better than the TNA version of her character, where she was kind of this wannabe MMA fighter, kind of. She wants to be a star. She's doing it for her family. Kind of the sort of all-American underdog story stereotype. I felt she plays the part of a heel wrestler with a big ego much better. So I appreciated Lovelace's character. Now, Kimber Lee, also playing a heel, kind of an arrogant, stuck-up woman, and she would later do some tag team things. But the two of them, I think, had a good match. Heel versus heel matches, some people say, are a waste of time because who cares who wins? I think they can be a lot of fun. And they also, if you look at it from a storyline perspective, determine, well, who will the heroes be fighting? Will it be this one or that one? And which villain will triumph, which one will fail? And sometimes, when the two villains join forces, then that spells a lot of trouble for the good guys later on. So, I don't think they're a waste of time at all. Plus, sometimes a heel will turn face and become good because as a result of the match, maybe the fans will have more sympathy on one than the other. So, I don't think they're a waste of time. And I think this particular match was quite wonderful. We also had Athena versus Candice LeRae, or LeRae. I had not seen Candice LeRae wrestle before. Perfectly fine. Athena, of course, I've seen her before. She had a new gimmick this time, at least that I had seen. Again, realizing that we had missed several volumes in between for the home viewing crowd. She came out with a red outfit. She had a large flag. The promo she recorded online for this, she came across as a little delusional. I suppose that was the point, that she was, rather than kind of this aloof character with a big ego, she was more someone who was really trying to become famous and trying to become great, and who had just this amazing legacy ahead of her. It didn't come across as comical, but it was just more like, who is this person? Who is she really going to become? Is she going to become, is she going to fall crashing down? Are her dreams going to be shattered? Or is she going to become what she imagines herself to be, which is this great, legendary competitor? So, it was kind of an experiment, I suppose. I enjoy Athena's matches. The fans really appreciate her. So I think having a familiar wrestler and an unfamiliar wrestler together is a perfectly wonderful way to introduce them and to show what they can do. So, moving on. Next, the NCW Femme Fatales International Championship match. This was a bit interesting. This was Mercedes Martinez versus Courtney Rush. Now, Mercedes Martinez, one of my favorite Shimmer competitors. She has not been active lately. I'm not sure what her status is, but at this time she had come back, and she was wearing a belt, and that was something interesting because we hadn't really, at least I had not seen Mercedes Martinez wearing a belt. Because she was never the Shimmer champion. Now, the NCW Femme Fatales, a Canadian promotion of all women, Calamity, Lufisto, and several others have been part of this. So she had apparently become their champion and was now representing that belt in this match. And I wasn't sure the cross promotion, not knowing much about NCW Femme Fatales, except for seeing a couple of promos, for example, Calamity doing a promo in French, which was very good. At least it sounded good to me. She sounded much more imposing in French than in English. So I thought, well, Mercedes Martinez, she's bringing in a belt from outside. Is she really going to lose it to someone who's now going to take it into Shimmer? So that was, I don't know, just a way to acknowledge another promotion, I suppose. Courtney Rush, overall, I think I enjoyed her most when she was the rising star, the underdog. Her goofy side is entertaining, especially in the live venue, but I think I much prefer the competitive underdog. I enjoy her confidence. Of course, her character changes later to kind of a villain. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But sometimes these characters, they take some time to, I think, for the fans to become used to them and appreciate them, and too much change too rapidly can be a bit jarring. So, but for this particular show, accepting Courtney Rush as, a rising young star who has a fun-loving spirit, against Mercedes Martinez, this vicious, brutal cheater who doesn't care and now has a belt and so is more arrogant than ever, but can back it up with actions. So it was a good competitive match, and every Mercedes Martinez match I have seen has been worthwhile. Even the very short squash match, as they call it, that she had in WWF against Victoria, which was so short, even that match was worth seeing, because I feel that Mercedes Martinez does so much, and she puts all of herself out there on the ring, and the fans can see her effort. Okay. Next we have Thunder Kitty versus Nikki Storm. Now these are two wrestlers that it took me some time to really appreciate them, I think, for them to grow on me. Some wrestlers I like instantly, others take some time. Some I never really get into. Thunder Kitty, rather new wrestler, her gimmick is a woman who is a throwback to the early days of women's wrestling, kind of a 1950s, 1960s, era, with the black and white, the swimming suits and the, that early period. The way she talks, the way she dresses, she acts like, that kind of post World War II strong woman, and it's kind of endearing. It's kind of fun, but her wrestling style then is much more basic, much more of a punches and headlocks and that sort of thing. That's not to say she's only a brawler, but it is much different than, say, the Joshi style or kind of the acrobatic style that maybe we're used to. Nikki Storm, at first I was not a fan, but that has changed. After seeing her in a few volumes, I've come to appreciate her character much more. She really plays up her thick Scottish accent, her arrogance, her love of the Backstreet Boys band, and how she just feels that she is just the greatest thing ever. And the fans are all secretly in love with her and cannot resist, her amazing charm and charisma, and so it's quite funny. And she is, for her small stature, she actually has very impressive physique. For a woman that looks like her, I'm very impressed. Let's just put it that way. I'm very impressed in her physique, and I'm sure she worked very hard at it to stay in that kind of physical condition. And the matches are entertaining. But the two of them together, at this time, like I said, I was not a fan, and I was more just watching to sort of see how things went. I think the very first time I saw this volume, it was more just a feeling out process. Like, who is this wrestler? I wonder what they're like. Let me just think about it. But then the second time I watched, I could appreciate it a little more. I'd had some time to think about it, and oh, okay. But then seeing them in other volumes, I think it wasn't the first time they'd wrestled in Shimmer, but I think both of them have had better performances. I think Thunder Kitty, though, I hope to see more of her, and I hope that she continues to expand, I suppose. Certainly her gimmick is a good one, but I hope it doesn't limit her too much in what she can do, because certainly the wrestlers of the past had very different styles. There were very different audience expectations of how they would perform, and they can be true to that character without being completely limited by it. Because certainly the moves of the different wrestlers, actually it seems as if over time they've expanded. And so wrestlers in the 50s and 60s didn't have to do as much as the wrestlers in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. I feel as if independent wrestling, though, has always been on the cutting edge in terms of moves. Of course, a lot of it has been an attempt to imitate the styles of Japan and Mexico, and then placing that into the United States and Canada and so forth. So different expectations. Next, we have Hikaru Shida versus Evie. Now, Hikaru Shida is another of the Joshi performers who I had not seen before, and her appearance is that of a very slender, kind of impish, if you will, character. She likes to brandish bamboo canes or kendo sticks, and she went up against Evie, this New Zealand wrestler who I believe I'd seen before. She's very much into kicks and acrobatics, also very slender in build, and so the two of them were kind of a match in terms of their physique, their moves. So I think it was very complimentary, and overall just a good match. I think I would appreciate Shida in after being able to see her in more matches, seeing her style, and then sort of having that anticipation of, well, how I have imagined how this is going to go. I wonder how it's really going to happen. But at this time, it was just simply a matter of, well, here's a Joshi wrestler. The Joshi wrestlers are usually very good. I wonder if Evie will be able to survive. I know she's good, but is she good enough? So that was kind of how I went into it. And I think both of them came out looking good, so it was a good match. Now, the Shimmer Tag Team Championship was Kelly Skater and Tomoka Nakagawa, 3G, the Global Green Gangsters, who have one of the longest intros, if not the longest, of any Shimmer tag team at completely. They have streamers, they have a very long intro, they have to say a whole bunch of stuff about Kelly Skater, and then they added a bunch of stuff for Tomoka Nakagawa, and so it's a very long introduction. And it's quite funny because, of course, Kelly Skater made a name for herself on the size of her ego being much greater than the size of her physique. Tomoka Nakagawa, of course, cheating up a storm, and yet somehow being lovable and hateable at the same time. And the two of them then coming together to form a tag team, and Kelly Skater becoming more of a virtuous person and trying to improve Tomoka, and yet not completely doing so. The few times she stops Tomoka from cheating, it seems as if it hurts them, and when Tomoka does cheat, it helps them. So there you go. But they went up against Madison Eagles and Nicole Matthews. It was an interesting matchup because, of course, usually Nicole Matthews is paired with Portia Perez, and Portia Perez was absent. So the two of them had to get together, and of course, the two of them have had, of course, run-ins together. It was sort of a temporary alliance, if you will. Of course, I appreciate both of those wrestlers. Nicole Matthews has become a favorite of mine. Of course, now she's champion. It seems that great minds think alike, I suppose. But anyway, I would say overall, this was a good match. I've never been disappointed with a 3G match. And of course, Madison Eagles and Nicole Matthews, whether together or separated, will guarantee a good, overall, entertaining match. So I appreciated that one, actually. And I think by that time, of course, this was a match I could actually sit back and love. Up to this point, I was thinking, well, I wonder how this wrestler's going to go. That was okay, but I want to see more. This one I knew was going to be good, and it was. So there you go. And then, finally, the Shimmer Championship match was a 2 out of 3 falls stipulation, which is rare, but I appreciate it. 2 out of 3 falls between Cheerleader Melissa and Lufisto. Now, Cheerleader Melissa has begun the downward spiral. As the 2-time champion, she has embraced her heel persona, and I'm not sure if I like it, whether one way or another. I know Melissa can talk. She's actually very witty, very entertaining, but it seems as if most of her promos kind of stilted. Just not a lot of, I don't know, enthusiasm in them. I'm not sure what it is, but for some reason when she does a promo, I feel as if she's not going up to her full potential. But it's possible that she's doing that on purpose, maybe stifling that to appear, I don't know, more stoic, more neutral, more bland. I'm not sure. But if I were in charge of booking, I would say, just go for it. Don't read off a script, just do it. You're so much better when you're off the cuff and just responding to questions. But be it as it may, Cheerleader Melissa is an excellent wrestler, and no one can take that away from her. So, as she becomes more and more of the heel that she was in the early days of Shimmer, kind of a brutal person. I mean, if you look at most of her moves, they actually suit a heel, I think, much better than a face, because they're all cheating or borderline cheating. They work well in no disqualification matches. Now, Lufisto, of course, is beloved by the fans, but she cheats constantly. She's always breaking the rules, and I guess some of it is her character's a little crazy. She talks to her dolly, so she's a little crazy, and maybe she doesn't really understand. In her own mind, she deserves to win, and she'll get there any way she can, but she's almost like a little child that doesn't realize she's being naughty. So there you go. But needless to say, Cheerleader Melissa is evil. So she will take out Lufisto one way or another. She'll keep the belt, and Mercedes Martinez, who's also gone to the dark side, will help her out. And that's just how it's going to be. And unfortunately, as much as I appreciate Lufisto, she's not going to win. And Lufisto is an unpredictable quantity, I feel, because of the many injuries she's had. She's talked about retiring from wrestling. It's almost as if you don't know from one show to the next if she's going to be back or not. But I'm always overjoyed to see when she is on the card, because Lufisto is just a very talented wrestler, and I think she stands for something. She stands for women who have other talents besides their looks. There's nothing wrong with her looks, but she doesn't look like a TV model. And so the more she's able to put herself out there and to be one more example of a woman who does it her way and can make fans through her versatility. And so to see her efforts against Cheerleader Melissa as the main event, I think was very appropriate, and it was great to see her back. And thankfully, no major injuries were apparent at the show, other than the usual bumps and bruises that come with wrestling. So overall, I would say 62. The live stream was a bit of a disappointment, but the actual digital versatile disc, quite good. And if you can watch it in context, watching the previous volumes and then the subsequent volumes after this, I think is quite complete and quite good. So if anything, this has aged better than it might otherwise have been. Okay. Well, thank you for listening to my review. I'll be doing more reviews in the future, and I appreciate your patience as I turn them out, and I hope that you will check out some of these